It is time now for our KSAT Q&A, and we are joined today by Mayor Ron Nirenberg, who joins us often on Tuesdays here to talk about all things happening in the city. Mayor, thanks for being here.
Thank you, and happy Thanksgiving to both of you and to everybody out there listening.
Yeah, appreciate you being here on the holiday week with us. So let's talk about really a huge piece of news for the city over this past week, Project Marvel. This is the first time we're talking to you here on the Q&A since some of those details, those renderings were released last Thursday. We found out a lot, but there's a lot we still don't know about this project, namely when it comes to cost. So when could we find out what it will cost and who will be asked to pay for that?
So that's the period that we're in right now. And Myra, we've talked a lot over the last year or so about bits and pieces of this. The fact that, we are due some renovations to the convention center to remain competitive. We know that the work that UTSA is doing downtown is groundbreaking. Hemisphere is underway. The Alamo Dome is due improvement. So in bits and pieces, we've been talking about the elements of Project Marvel for a long, long time. It is new now that we are talking about downtown in this particular space of downtown as a comprehensive vision. That's what's different here. And of course, the potential of having the Spurs in their new home be in downtown San Antonio. So the period that we're in right now is really due diligence and community engagement. We've got a lot of work to do to understand the scope of some of these projects. And it's not until we have the scope that we can understand fully the costs. We also have to do an inventory of all the different revenue streams that are available, the private sector equity that is expected in a project like this, along with, visitor taxes that are earmarked for these sorts of projects. So we've got a lot of work to do in terms of due diligence to get total price tags, also to come up with a financial plan. And ultimately, what's happening right now is community engagement, not just the adjacent neighborhoods, but the community in general. Do we want to take our city, our downtown in particular, to the next level? Do we want to ensure that the Spurs have a long-term home in downtown San Antonio, which I think is essential for the future and the success of the team? These are things that we need to engage the entire public about, because ultimately this is our city that we're investing in together.
In Mayor, the phrase stadium boondoggle is spoken often when we're at this stage in big cities that are trying to build an arena, whether it's for the NFL or in this case an NBA franchise, where sporting venues often don't reach the mark economically on what was promised kind of at this stage while the city is gathering facts, whether it's Nashville, Las Vegas, Oklahoma City in just the last few years. What promises can you make to residents of San Antonio that this will not become the next pro sports arena boondoggle?
Yeah, and certainly I understand the cynicism, and it's all about how, number one, we approach this. Is this something that we're promising is going to all of a sudden lift the economic prospects of our city? That's not why we're engaged in this. The reality is that we're lifting the economic prospects of our city because we're investing in housing, because we're investing in education, because we're building mass transit, public transportation for the first time. Those are the things that will make us a prosperous and fair city. So when it comes to potential investment of an arena and bringing the Spurs downtown, we want that to be an added benefit, not something that will all of a sudden be the cause for all of these things to occur that we want to see happen for our city. So if that's the case, if we're looking at this as a potential public amenity that local San Antonians can enjoy, it's really about how we structure the deal. Can we do it in a way that doesn't compromise all those other important investments that we're making in your neighborhood streets, in your education, in your housing stock that we're improving here in San Antonio? Can we make sure that we do this without compromising those priorities? And can we ensure that everyone has skin in the game in a fair manner? This is a deal that I can assure you is going to include private equity, not just San Antonio. And it's one that we can craft together as a community, because that's what is required of this public engagement process. We want to make sure that when we finally ink a deal, that it's one that we can all stand by and that can lift our entire community and feel good about. That's what I expect is going to happen. And that's what we're all committed to.
Mayor, the idea of a new Spurs arena was part of a conversation we had right here yesterday when we were talking about an article in this month's Texas Monthly that asks the question, San Antonio is booming, so why is it still considered a poorer big city? In that conversation, we talked about hospitality jobs, about jobs that often come along with something like an arena that don't provide for a lot of wage growth. And in that conversation, I know you got a chance to take a look at that. We talked about the poverty rate in San Antonio.
Yeah.
You took issue with what's in that article. Why?
Well, number one, I think it does a remarkable job of examining the causes of why San Antonio became one of the poorest big cities in the country, if not the biggest, if not the poorest city in the country. But we have, and there is no doubt about this, over the last 10 to 12 years, been making the investments necessary to turn those cycles of poverty into cycles of prosperity. And what I take issue with the article about is that it is woefully incomplete when it comes to what our community has rallied together to accomplish. We have a virtually citywide early childhood education initiative that was started, that was expanded to 3-year-olds. We have there's no city in the country that is doing more for a housing crisis that every city in the country is facing. We are finally building mass transit, investing in public transportation the way we need to as a community, and not to mention the fact that we are getting folks into training for higher wage jobs so that we can break those cycles of poverty once and for all. The community has really changed the paradigm in terms of how we're investing in people in this community. And it's only through those investments that we can justify all of these other amenities that we want to think about as a community. When we have our priorities right as a community, as a city, the fundamentals, then we can move on to all the other nice things to have. And that's why San Antonio, I think, is poised for growth in a way that includes people for the first time. And I'll tell you, the work that we've done together as a community is bearing fruit. When I took over as mayor, we were the city with the highest poverty rate among the big cities in America, 22%. We have ticked down, and we have fought through a pandemic in the process. And so, my hope for this community is that we can understand we are not where we want to be, but we are finally moving in the right direction. And that's what I wish that article would cover, is the things that we're doing to change those cycles of poverty in the past.
Mayor, switching gears to the Reproductive Justice Fund, just within the last hour, District 10 City Councilman Mark White has put out a statement. He's been critical of the plan all along. He does not like the idea of additional money being taken from the general fund to pay for out-of-state travel for some of these procedures. Where is your stance on this and your response to the continued criticism from Councilman White?
So first, we've been talking about this Reproductive Justice Fund for just about 2 years since it was initially proposed. And this issue of travel services is probably the source of all the debate. We probably could have been through with this issue a year and a half ago if it wasn't for this particular issue. So what I suggested to the council is that we need to separate that debate for travel services. We know that women in our community need access to health care. And in this case, many women in our community need access to reproductive health care, including abortion services. And so the debate will be whether or not the Reproductive Justice Fund has money in it to fund those travel services to places where they can get that kind of health care. I support it, but it's now a matter of whether or not the city council supports it. And we're going to finally have that debate rather than just dancing around the issue for another year and a half.
All right, we'll see where this part of the conversation leads us. Mayor, we appreciate you being here. Hope you have a very happy Thanksgiving and get to take a little bit of time away from all this city business with your family. Thanks for your time.
Good Thanksgiving, you all.